Same guy who lied to his father and cheated his father out of the family authority. But Jacob was growing. Now we're going to see that he still made some mistakes. He still did some dumb things. But he was growing. He was beginning to mature. He was learning and he was discovering that God's ways include integrity. So Jacob has made an interesting proposal to Laban about how Laban can pay him. And for that pay, Jacob agrees to stay on the job a little bit longer. As a matter of fact, he stays on the job approximately another 5 years from this point. And he says, okay, I'll do this. If you'll just let me have the speckled sheep, the spotted, you know, the ones that aren't pure, I'll take those and that will be my wages. And I love Laban's response. It's in verse 34. He says, agreed. Let it be as you have said. And the word that Laban uses in the Hebrew expresses this great eagerness. It's like, okay. That's really probably what should have been written there, you know, in our language. Okay. He couldn't wait to get this started. No doubt he thought the plan was to his advantage and that he was getting away with something. Laban did. So he probably thought, Jacob, you're a moron. Okay, yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, you can take the sheep that I don't want. You want that. And you're going to continue to work for me, and you're going to start a business with these. Okay, fine, yeah, whatever. So the deal was done. Verse 35 and 36 says that the deal was done. They agreed to that. Which brings us to the 9th point, which is in verses 37 through 42. And this is such an important point, and that is, be unique. Be unique. Now, what happens next is as odd a plan as you will ever see. It doesn't make sense. Biologists have scoffed at it for centuries. Theologians have scratched their heads at it. Linguists have tried to reinterpret it. It is as odd as it gets. Let's read it, starting with verse 37. Jacob, however, took fresh cut branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees and made white stripes on them by peeling the bark and exposing the white inner wood of the branches. Then he placed the peeled branches in all the watering troughs so that they would be directly in front of the flocks when they came to drink. When the flocks were in heat and came to drink, they made it in front of the branches, and they bore young that were streaked or speckled or spotted. Jacob set apart the young of the flock by themselves, but made the rest face the streaked and dark-colored animals that belonged to Laban. Thus he made separate flocks for himself, and did not put them with Laban's animals. Whenever the stronger females were in heat, Jacob would place the branches in the troughs in front of the animals so that they would mate near the branches. But if the animals were weak, he would not place them there. So the weak animals went to Laban, and the strong ones to Jacob. Now here's what was happening. Best we can figure out what was going on. He went and he took these trees, and he would peel them, and he would set them up around the watering trough, and he would put some in the watering trough, and there was just all these weird things that he was doing to the trees, and the animals would come and they would mate in front of, in this area. And Laban's animals he was doing the job for Laban, doing what Laban wanted him to do, but Laban, remember, wanted pure white sheep, and he wanted pure brown or pure black goats. So Jacob just let them do their thing, and while he took the ones that had been given to him, and he began this process of having them mate around the watering pot. And this went on for some time. Now, what many theologians have suggested is that this reveals that there's still this deceptive nature in Jacob, that he was still a deceiver, that he was doing something, to mess things up. And biologists come along going, what? He's taking the bark off trees? What do you think he's fooling the sheep? I don't think that he was being deceptive at all. I don't think that at all. I think this shows how smart Jacob really was. He had been tending these sheep, remember, and these goats for over 14 years now. And he had discovered something very unique about these animals. Animals breed by seasonal cycles. That's no genius thing to figure out. But in the Middle East, and particularly in the desert areas, seasonal cycles are not so much defined by weather as much as they are by the cycles of plant life. And all Jacob was doing was he was taking and making the plants in the area of the watering troughs look like they would look normally during the normal mating season of the sheep and goats. And so when the sheep and goats would come along, the ones that were his, and they would see what appeared to be a change in the plants so that they appeared to what they would normally look like during the regular mating season, the bark was peeling or whatever it was, there would be this trigger that would say, oh, it's, must be mating. It's that time of the season. It doesn't really matter if that's the correct explanation or not. What matters is that this wacky plan of Jacob's was blessed by God. That's what matters. So don't give Jacob credit for it. Give God credit for it. Because even though Jacob was peeling the bark and doing that stuff and putting it up and making it look like, oh, hey, gee, it's the time of the year. Even though he was doing that, it was God who actually made it work. But the plan itself was so unique. And that's why I put this principle in here. You have to be unique at what you do. You have to be unique at what you do. If you try to be like everybody else, you're just going to be part of the crowd. You're just going to, and as the crowd goes, and if the crowd succeeds, then you'll succeed. But if you really are going to be successful as an employee or as a business owner, you have to be so unique, so unusual, so different in what you do that it's above and beyond what everybody else is. There was one of my favorite books, marketing books, is a book they it's basically called The Blue Ocean Theory. It's written out of Harvard. And the idea that's put here is that most people fish in what they call the red ocean, which is where people go in to fish, and once they catch some fish, then all the other fish are there, and they swarm, and everybody else comes to fish in the same fishing hole, and then there's blood, and it just the chum, and the churning, and it just gets to be a messy area. And yes, it does attract more fish. It attracts sharks, and that sort of thing. But that's where everybody's fishing. This marketing plan says, go fish the blue ocean. Go fish where nobody else is fishing. Go fish areas that nobody else has ever tried before. And you will find greater success in those if you will learn what's in the blue waters. And so I've taken that principle and applied it in my own life because I believe that it's a biblical principle. And here's a good example of that. Jacob was doing something that was so unique. He wasn't doing it the way everybody else was doing it. He was doing something that nobody else was doing. He was doing it differently. And God blessed it. Now, obviously, God had given him this insight. This wasn't something that Jacob just conceived on his own. God had given them this knowledge and this understanding. This can be done. It can be done this way. And this is why. This is how it can be done. This is something that God did. And in your own life, you need that also. You need to be so unique that you actually buck the crowd. You go in an opposite direction of what the crowd does. Certainly accomplishing the same or more than what's being accomplished. But if you are going to be successful as an employee or as a business owner, you have to be unique in what you do.
And it's only through your word.